The creaking of the old wooden floors echoed like whispers in the dead night as Clara Winslow stepped into her father's ancestral home. Each sound seemed to stir up dust from the past, memories long locked away in the dilapidated walls of the Winslow estate. Shadows danced in the flickering candlelight, twisting into shapes that made her heart race. Clara had barely known her father, a figure cloaked in myths and half-truths, but his legacy loomed over her, now more than ever. The grand entry hall, once filled with laughter and life, felt like a mausoleum. The air was heavy, thick with secrets that clung to her like the dust coating the neglected furniture. She moved cautiously, each step weighed down by the realization that this house was not just a relic. It was a lingering reminder of a family she had never fully belonged to. The portraits that lined the walls stared down at her, eyes unnatural, as if they followed her every movement. With each glance, their expressions seemed to warp, becoming twisted versions of joy that made her skin crawl. In the back of her mind, a nagging thought took form. What really happened in this place? Why had her father kept her at arm's length? As Clara explored the house, she stumbled upon a false wall in the library. It cracked open with a push, revealing a hidden room, one not marked on any blueprints she'd pored over. The chill that licked at her skin sent shivers down her spine, a sensation that something unseen was waiting just beyond the doorway. The hidden room had no echoes of the past. It was eerily silent, the air stagnant. Clara stepped inside cautiously, her heartbeat drumming like a wild horse. Dust motes floated lazily in the dim light, settling on objects that had clearly been untouched for years. As she rummaged through the remnants of her father's life, her fingers brushed against pieces of paper, each filled with disturbing references to the Winslow family's dark history. She felt the walls closing in on her, the fear course in her throat as chilling realizations surfaced in her mind. The family she barely knew had been stitched into a tapestry of shadows, secrets darker than she dared imagine. Rumors of madness, untold tragedies, and an unshakable feeling of being watched filled her thoughts. The attic had become her refuge, but it felt like a trap. As she scavenged through the old trunk hidden beneath a moth-eaten blanket, she stumbled upon a journal filled with cryptic notes, words about a woman, someone her father had known intimately, who seemed to be connected to the very essence of the Winslow legacy. It described a mirror in the entrance hall that had reportedly held strange powers, powers that ensnared the users, trapping them in reflections not their own. Driven by an aching curiosity, Clara found herself drawn back to the grand entrance hall. There hung the old ornate mirror her father had refused to speak of. It towered over her, its surface clouded and cracked. She stepped closer, heart hammering. When she peered into the glass, her breath caught. Her own reflection was there for an instant, before fading away, replaced by a haunting visage of a woman dressed in an elegant gown, a woman long forgotten by time. The air grew heavy and cold as Clara stepped back, pulse racing. Who was this ghostly figure, and what did it want from her? In that moment, the silence deepened, a shroud of darkness settling around her. The house, it seemed, had more to say, and as she watched the reflection distort, twisting between her own face and the woman staring back, she felt the weight of the Winslow legacy compound into a singular question. Was she destined to unravel the truth, or was she simply a part of a story already woven into the fabric of this place? Clara stepped back from the mirror, panting. The figure had vanished, leaving only her own scared reflection. A noise echoed behind her, a creak, footsteps on the old floorboards. "Clara!" A voice broke through the hush. It was Rick, the family attorney, burst in like a storm. His eyes widened at the sight of her. "What are you doing here?" "I found something," she stammered. "In the library, a hidden room." Rick frowned. "You shouldn't be alone in this house. It's not safe. Let's go." "No, wait." Clara pointed at the mirror. "You have to see this." He stepped closer, hesitating. "What's wrong with it? Look." She leaned in again, scanning the glass. "There was a woman. I swear she was right here." Just the old glass, Rick said, though his voice wavered. Nothing more. No, there was a woman, dressed in black. I think, Clara struggled for words. She's tied to my family. Rick shook his head. You need to stop. This house holds too many bad memories. Memories? Clara snapped. I barely know anything. What happened here? Your father. He had his secrets. It's not for us to dig into. Frustration bubbled in Clara. You don't get it. I have to know. Maybe it's better left alone. No sooner had he finished speaking than the air grew heavier. The lights flickered. Clara and Rick exchanged glances. Unease crept in like a cold draft. A loud bang sounded from the attic, followed by a scraping noise. They both turned toward the stairway. What was that? Clara's voice trembled. I don't know, Rick replied, eyes darting. Stay here. No, I'm going. Clara raced toward the stairs. Rick hesitated, then followed, his steps quickening. They reached the attic door and Clara pushed it open. The hinges screamed as it swung wide. The room was dark, save for a sliver of moonlight cutting through the window. Dust hung thick in the air. Hello, Clara called out. Silence answered back. They stepped inside, the floor creaking beneath them. Clara scanned the space, heart pounding. A box lay overturned in the corner, papers scattered across the floor like leaves in autumn. Clara knelt, and her hands trembled as she reached for them. Clara, we should stay focused, Rick urged nervously. This isn't... Shh! She shook her head as she picked up a yellowed page. It felt wrong, familiar. This one. It looks like it's from my father. A letter. What does it say? Rick leaned closer. Clara held her breath as she read the words, her heart racing. It's about the mirror. It says... What? What? Rick's voice was tense. It says the woman in the mirror was a part of the family. Clara's voice shook. She was cursed. Cursed? Rick frowned. What do you mean? Listen, it says she... Clara couldn't finish. A shadow flitted behind Rick. Did you see that? Clara whispered. Rick turned, eyes wide. What? Before he could respond, a loud crash erupted from the other end of the attic. They both spun around. Clara! Rick shouted. Get back! A figure darted into the light. Clara froze. It was her father. Dad? She gasped, disbelief swirling in her gut. Clara, you need to leave, now. His face was pale, eyes wild. What? Clara clutched the letter. Why? What's happening? Just go, he shouted, voice trembling. I can't let you get trapped. Trapped? What are you talking about? Please! He stepped forward, desperation etched in his face. You don't understand. I tried to protect you. You can't face this. A wall of cold air slammed into Clara, as if the house itself was pushing back. The papers flew from her hands. Rick moved beside her, eyes locked on her father. You've been lying all this time, Rick said, anger flaring. I did it for her safety, he barked, guilt mixing with fear. Who is she? Clara's voice shook. Who is the woman in the mirror? Enough! Her father's voice boomed, shaking the walls around them. You have to leave. The attic door slammed shut. No! Clara screamed, heart racing. This isn't over. I can't let you end up like her. Her father's voice broke. Clara stepped closer, defiance burning in her eyes. You think this is about the past? I need to know. Rick gripped her arm tightly. Clara, we can't stay here. No, Dad owes me this. She turned back to him. What happened to her? Who was she? Clara's father looked back at her, a darkness in his eyes. She was... Before he could finish, the mirror in the corner shattered. Glass rained down as whispers filled the air, swirling around them like a dark fog. The temperature dropped. Clara! Rick shouted. We have to go! But Clara stood frozen, staring at the fragments on the floor. Clara! Her father cried. The shadows danced angrily on the walls. A loud crash from the roof above them erupted, followed by a blinding flash of light. The floor trembled. What's happening? Clara's voice was a rasp now. Rick pulled her back, but her gaze never left her father. Go! He yelled, urgency climbing in his voice. The shadows roared. Clara felt a pull, a force yanking at her. No! She shouted, reaching for him. Don't go! But it was too late. Rick pulled Clara through the door, and as the darkness behind swallowed her father whole, the attic erupted into chaos. "Clara, we need to move, now!" But as they stumbled toward the stairs, Clara glanced back. The air shimmered, and for a moment she thought she saw her father's face. "Clara!" Rick shouted. With the final shudder, the attic door slammed shut, and the shadows inside let out a scream that echoed down the halls of the Winslow estate. The world outside felt distant. All she had left was the haunting image of her father's eyes as the door closed, sealing the secrets of the Winslow family forever. And a single question clung to her mind. Was this just the beginning? Clara stumbled down the narrow attic stairs, Rick's grip firm on her arm. The air was thick, heavy with tension. Each step echoed her father's urgent voice, still ringing in her ears. "Clara, we can't stop now. We need to get out," Rick urged, his breath quickening. She peeled her gaze from the attic door, terrified it would burst open again. "What was that? Why did he—" "I don't know," Rick shouted, his voice strained. "Let's just move." They reached the main floor, the old wooden boards creaking beneath them. Clara's heart raced, memories flooding her mind. The mirror, her father's warning, the shadows. They stepped into the dim light of the living room. Its once grand elegance now felt sinister. Clara felt the chill wrap around her. "Rick, what do we do?" Her voice quivered. "We have to get outside. Call for help," he said, glancing back at the shadows behind them. "We can't stay here." Clara glanced around. The house felt alive, breathing down their necks. What if something's still in the attic? Something? Or someone? Rick's eyes darted. "It's not safe." "Come on." Clara hesitated. "My father, he was trying to protect me. He knows something." Rick stepped closer, urgency etched on his face. "Doesn't matter now. We can't figure this out if we're dead." "Dead?" Clara's eyes widened. "But he warned me about the woman in the mirror. She was cursed. He tried to protect me from that." "Clara, listen. We don't have time for this. You're just—" "What? Just a scared girl?" Clara interrupted sharply. "This is my family." Rick's jaw tightened. "And this family is dangerous. We need to get out." Facing the front door, Clara felt the weight of the house pressing down. "If we leave, if I let it go, what if he's gone for good?" Rick grabbed her shoulders. "Clara, focus. Are you coming?" She looked back, uncertainty in her eyes. "I have to know." "Then let's find out together, but not here. We'll come back. We need to regroup." Clara finally nodded. "Okay, together." They turned toward the front door, only to see it shake violently. Clara jumped back. "Stop!" Rick yelled. "We have to go." "Why is it doing that?" Clara could barely breathe, anxiety crawling up her throat. The door swung open, creaking ominously. A gust of cold air swept in, and Clara felt it wrapping around her, pulling her back. A dark figure rushed into the room. Clara gasped, heart hammering. It was a man, his face hidden in shadows. "Get back!" Rick shoved Clara aside, stepping between her and the figure. "Rick!" Clara shouted. "Who is that?" The man stepped forward, revealing messy hair and eyes that gleamed like knives. "I'm not here to hurt you." "Stay away!" Rick barked, fists clenched. "I'm not your enemy," the man insisted. "I'm here to warn you." "Warn us? About what?" Rick demanded. Clara's stomach twisted. Are you family?" The man blinked slowly, weighing his words. "You could say that." He turned his gaze on Clara. "Your father is in danger." "I know that," Clara replied, tension bubbling. "He told me to leave, and now it's too late," the man said, voice quieting. "We have to stop her." "Stop who?" Clara stepped forward, adrenaline making her bold. "The woman from the mirror. She's awake. She wants you, Clara." Rick interjected. "What do you know about her?" The man's dark gaze hardened. "More than you can imagine. She's tied to this family, and if she gets you, she'll trap you forever." "No one's trapping me," Clara snapped. "Not again." "And you don't understand," the man pleaded. "This is bigger than you think." Rick kept his stance firm. "Tell us what you know." "She was a part of the family, an ancestor, trapped in that mirror for decades," the man explained urgently. "Your father tried to protect you from her power, but it's too late." Clara shook her head. "Too late for what?" The man stepped closer, lowering his voice. "She's been searching for the next of kin. She needs your life force." Silence fell heavy in the room. Clara's breath hitched. "No. Yes," the man confirmed. "We need to act fast before she reaches you." Rick looked back at Clara. "What do you want to do?" "I want to know if it's true," Clara declared, determination rising. "I have to face this." The man shook his head. "You're playing with fire. You don't know what she's capable of." "I have to," Clara insisted. "If she's tied to the Winslow family, then she's tied to me." Rick stepped closer to Clara. "We can find another way." "Enough!" the man yelled, raising his voice. "You need to make a choice. You're running out of time." Suddenly, the house began to tremble, the very walls quaking. A loud crash came from the attic, shaking the floor beneath them. Clara felt a rush of fear. "That's her!" the man shouted. "She's coming!" "What do we do?" Clara's voice rose. "Run!" he commanded. Before they could react, all the windows shattered, glass raining down. Rick grabbed Clara's arm. "Let's go!" They bolted for the front door. As they reached it, the man called out, "Remember, you're the key!" Clara turned back, confused. The key to what? But the man was gone, swallowed by the darkness. Clara and Rick burst through the door, stumbling into the night. But they didn't stop running, not until they reached the edge of the property. Clara's heart raced, and she spun to look back at the house, silhouetted against the moonlight. "Clara, we need to regroup," Rick urged, breathing hard. "There's no time," she shouted. "What do we do now?" "Find a way to turn this around," Rick said. "We need answers, fast." As Clara nodded, something caught her eye. A flicker in the shadows of the house, a glimpse of the mirror reflecting the night. In that moment, she knew this wasn't over. It was just beginning. A cold wind howled through the trees. A voice, unheard but felt, whispered her name. And the weight of the Winslow legacy pressed down harder than ever. Clara and Rick stood at the edge of the Winslow estate, the moonlight washing over them. The air felt heavy with lingering dread, the chill sinking into their bones. Clara could still see the faint outline of the house behind them, its dark windows like empty eyes watching their every move. "Do you think we're safe?" Clara asked, her voice shaky. Rick shook his head. "I don't know. Not yet. We need to regroup, think this through." "Regroup? About what? I want to know what's going on." Clara's frustration bubbled up. "We ran from something, Rick. We need to face it." "Face what? The shadows, the ghosts, that guy back there." Rick was sharp. "You don't even know if he's telling the truth." Clara crossed her arms, heart racing. "You heard him. She's looking for me. That mirror." "Let's just take a breath, Clara," he said, trying to steady his tone. "We can't jump in guns blazing. That could get us killed. Or trapped," Clara said, "like the others." Rick clenched his jaw. "We need a plan. We need to find a way to face this together. Get help." "What kind of help?" Clara snapped. "Who do we go to? Do we just tell a cop, 'Hey, I'm being hunted by a ghost'?" "No," Rick admitted, "but we need someone who knows about this stuff. A historian, maybe, or we could go back," Clara interrupted. Rick's eyes went wide. "You can't be serious." "I am serious," Clara shouted. "I need to know what's happening. I can't run forever." Silence hung between them. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the weight of their fear. "Okay then," Rick said. "If we go back, we need to be smart. We don't split up, and we watch each other's backs." "Fine," Clara replied, her voice low, "but I'm leading this time." "Let's go." Rick took a step forward, determination lining his face. They walked back toward the house. Clara's skin prickled. Shadows loomed larger under the moonlight. The front door creaked open, as if inviting them in. Clara and Rick exchanged a glance, then stepped inside. The house felt alive with whispers. Clara's heart drummed against her ribs. The dim light from the broken windows cast strange patterns on the walls. "Where to?" Rick whispered. "Back to the library. The hidden room might hold more answers." Clara led the way, her steps echoing in the stillness. They moved cautiously through the hallways. Dust swirled around them like ghosts of the past. Clara remembered the shadows, the way they twisted. They reached the library door, half open. "Here we go," she said, pushing it. Inside, the air felt thick. Clara's eyes darted around, searching for any sign that something was amiss. The false wall loomed ahead. It felt like a threshold between her and the truth. "Ready?" Rick asked, glancing back. "Stay close," Clara replied. With a firm shove, she opened the hidden room. It was dark, the air damp and stale. Inside, the remnants of her father's life lay scattered. Clara's heart dropped. "Clara!" Rick's voice trembled. She looked over. He was staring at a corner. "What's wrong?" "Something's not right." He stepped back, eyes scanning the shadows. "What do you mean?" Clara felt a rush of dread. Then she saw it, a flicker of movement, a dark figure darting across the room. Clara's breath caught. "Rick!" she shouted. "Did you see that?" "Yes," he said, wide-eyed. "We need to get out." But as they turned, the door slammed shut behind them. Darkness engulfed them. Clara's pulse raced. "Let me out!" Clara pressed against the door. It wouldn't budge. "Clara, step back." Rick's voice was firm. He joined her, pulling hard at the doorknob. "It's locked." "Locked?" Clara panicked. "Why would it be locked?" "Maybe it was meant to keep something in," Rick said, fear creeping into his voice. The shadows flickered again. Clara turned to see a figure emerge from the darkness. It was her father. "Clara!" he shouted, fear in his eyes. "What are you doing here?" "Dad!" Clara's heart dropped. "How? Why?" "You shouldn't have come back," he yelled, panic breaking through his tone. "You need to leave. Leave! You just appeared. What's happening?" Clara demanded. The darkness thickened. "Clara, listen to me. They're coming. You have to go." He stepped closer, desperation evident on his face. "Who?" Rick pressed. "What do you know?" "It's too late! I tried to protect you!" Clara's father shouted, voice echoing in the confined space. Clara felt a surge of anger. "Protect me? How?" "By lying to me, by hiding everything." Suddenly, the walls shuddered. Clara recoiled. Dust rained down. A loud crack split the air. "Get back!" Rick shoved Clara aside as a shadow leaped at them. "Dad!" Clara screamed, reaching for him. "No!" he yelled. "You can't stop it." The shadow engulfed him, darkness swallowing his form whole. Clara and Rick were thrown to the side, hitting the ground hard. "Clara!" Rick yelled, panic flooding his voice. "We have to get out of here!" "Dad!" Clara cried. "No!" The room shuddered again. Shadows twisted, forming into a mass of darkness. Clara's breath quickened. "There's no time!" Rick pulled her up. "Let's go!" The door rattled, the shadows pressing against it. Clara felt the suffocating weight closing in. "Now!" Rick shouted. Clara grabbed the handle again, desperation clawing at her. She yanked. The door swung open just as the darkness roared. They tumbled out into the hallway. "What just happened?" Rick gasped, eyes wide with fear. Clara looked back. "We have to close that door." "Are you nuts?" "It can't stay open like that." Clara's voice was steady. "It's a trap, Clara. Just help me." She pushed toward the hidden room. Before they could get in, the floor beneath them trembled. A loud crash echoed from the attic, breaking the moment. "Not again!" Rick shouted. "Come on!" Clara dashed toward the stairs, urgency pulling at her. As they reached the first step, they heard a voice, soft, chilling, like a whisper through the wall. "Clara!" She froze. The air turned icy. "Did you hear that?" Rick nodded, eyes wide. "Clara!" The voice echoed again, clearer this time. "You're mine." A pang of fear shot through her. "Don't listen," Rick shouted, pulling her back. "We need to—" But it was too late. The voice beckoned. Clara felt a force pulling her toward the stairwell. "No!" she shouted, fighting against it. The shadow stretched, reaching for her. "Clara, don't!" Rick held her tight, trying to pull her back. "Help me!" she screamed, but the shadows exploded, filling the hallway with darkness. Clara felt herself slipping, her grip failing. "Rick! Clara!" He pulled with all his might. But the darkness surged, and she started to fall into it. "Get out!" Rick shouted. "I'll find you!" Then Clara vanished, swallowed by the shadows. Rick staggered back, breathless. "No!" Desperation filled the air. "Clara!" he yelled, voice breaking. but there was only silence, and then darkness. A loud boom echoed through the house as the shadows solidified. Rick felt the walls tremble around him. He stood alone, heart pounding, fists clenched. Clara! But she was gone. And he stood at the edge of the abyss, facing an unknown horror. Rick stood in the hallway, the air thick with shadows. Silence hung heavy. Clara was gone. "Clara!" he shouted, heart racing. Nothing, just darkness. He pushed forward. "Come on!" The wooden floorboards creaked under his feet. He stepped into the hidden room. Papers lay scattered. Clara's father had been here, and so had she. "Clara!" Rick yelled again. A low whisper answered. "Rick!" He froze. The voice was soft, yet chilling. "Clara!" he called, stepping back. Nothing. He scanned the walls. The shadows curled and shifted. "This isn't happening." Rick rushed to the attic door. He pushed it open, but it was empty. No Clara, just a strange stillness that felt wrong. "Think! Where would she go?" He turned back to the hallway. "Clara!" he shouted. A loud crack pierced the silence. The walls seemed to shake. Rick stumbled back, fear clawing at his throat. He rushed toward the entrance. "Gotta get out!" he gasped. But the door slammed shut before he got there. "Come on!" He pounded against it. "Open!" The shadows swirled around him. He felt them wrap around his legs. "No!" he yelled. Suddenly the front door creaked open. A gust of wind swept in, pushing him back. "Rick!" a voice called. It was Clara. "Clara!" he shouted, hope surging. "Help me!" She appeared in the doorway, but she was different, pale as if drained of color. "What happened?" Rick rushed to her. "Are you okay?" "I don't know," Clara said, her voice shaking. "I saw my dad. He told me to leave." "What? Why?" "He was scared," she whispered. "Something's coming." Then the shadows moved again, closer. "Get back!" Rick pulled her behind him. "Do you feel that?" Clara's eyes widened. "I do. It's too quiet." The wind picked up, blowing through the door as the shadows thickened. "Let's go!" Rick grabbed Clara's arm. They stumbled back outside, fresh air hitting them. But the darkness didn't fade. It lingered at the edges of the porch. "What now?" Clara asked, breathless. Rick scanned the area. "We need to find somewhere safe. Call for help." But as he turned towards the woods, a figure emerged, silhouetted against the trees. "Who's that?" Clara whispered. "Stay behind me," Rick said, stepping forward. The figure stepped closer. It was a woman, long hair hanging like tendrils of shadow. "It's you," Clara breathed. "No," Rick said, eyes narrowing. "Who are you?" The woman smiled, but it wasn't kind. "Please, you don't understand." Clara took a step forward. "I know you. You're connected to my family." The woman laughed softly. "Connected? That's an understatement." Rick put a hand on Clara's shoulder. "We're not here for family reunions. What do you want?" "Clara," the woman said slowly, "your father made a promise." "A promise?" Clara repeated. "To protect you," the woman continued. "But it's too late now." Rick felt the wind shift. "What do you mean? What's going on?" "You're part of it," the woman said, looking straight at Clara. "The mirror, the shadows, they want you." "Why?" Clara asked, fear creeping into her voice. "Because you're the last," the woman replied. "What does that mean?" Rick demanded. The air grew denser. "Listen carefully, Clara," the woman said. "You're the only one who can break the curse." "What curse?" Rick pressed. The woman's smile faded. "The curse that binds the Winslow lineage to the mirror. You must decide." "Decide what?" Clara's voice trembled. "Who you will be." Rick clenched his fists. "Enough! You're not making sense." "Rick, wait!" Clara turned to him. "No! This is a trick!" The woman raised her hands. Shadows rippled behind her. "Don't!" Rick yelled, stepping forward. Suddenly the ground shook. A deep rumbling erupted from beneath them. Clara stumbled, grabbing onto Rick. "Get back!" he shouted, eyes wide. But it was too late. The earth split open, and a dark void appeared. "No, Clara! Rick!" she cried out as the ground gave way. Without warning, the shadows surged forward, swallowing them both into the blackness. "Rick!" Clara screamed. They fell, spiraling into darkness. Then everything went quiet. Rick and Clara landed hard on cold stone. "Are you okay?" Clara panted, pushing herself up. I think so. They looked around. They were in a dimly lit chamber, walls lined with mirrors. What is this place? Rick asked, pulse racing. Suddenly the room filled with laughter, gutted, hollow, echoing off the walls. Welcome. The woman's voice drifted through the shadows. You've returned. Clara jumped up. Where are you? Show yourself. But no one answered. We have to find a way out, Rick said, voice tense. Look! Clara pointed to the mirrors. They're all different. Rick stepped closer to one. What do you see? Nothing, Clara replied. Just my reflection. No, Rick said, examining another. There's something behind you. What do you mean? I don't know. The shadows shifted again, forming figures that looked just like them. Clara, they're not us, she gasped. Who are they? The figures grinned, their eyes dark voids. Then the laughter echoed again. Clara! Rick shouted, backing away. Stay close! The figures reached for them, hands stretching out. We have to move. Clara turned and bolted forward. Rick rushed after her, screaming, Watch out! But the figures lunged. Time slowed as Clara felt fingers brush past her skin. Rick! And another portal opened beneath them. They fell again, this time with no ground in sight. Hold on! Clara reached for Rick, gripping tight, and the darkness swallowed them whole. Then silence. They hit something solid this time. Clara blinked, and the shadows vanished. They were in a new room, walls blank. Where are we? She panted, but Rick didn't answer. His eyes were wide, fixated on the other end. What? Clara turned and her breath caught. A mirror stood against the wall, swirling with fog. Don't look at it, Rick shouted. But Clara felt the pull. It's drawing me in. Clara, we need to go. He pulled at her, but she couldn't tear her gaze away, and the mirror began to shimmer. Clara! The voice was soft, familiar. Dad, she whispered, stepping closer. Dad! But the shadows lurked nearby, waiting in the dark, and the mirror began to twist into a new shape. Clara, please! But in that moment, everything changed. The next reflection started forming, and Clara gasped. It was her, but not her. Darkness surrounded them again, and the laughter returned. Prepare for the truth, and the darkness closed in, sealing their fate. Clara and Rick stood at the edge of the abyss, ready to face whatever came next. Clara and Rick stood at the edge of the abyss, the swirling mirror before them, fogging like a breath on a cold morning. The shadows curled around them, heavy with laughter that echoed in the empty space. Don't look! Rick shouted, his voice sharp with urgency. But Clara couldn't help herself. She reached out, drawn to the reflection that morphed and shifted. Clara! Rick's hand clamped down on her wrist. We need to go, now! It's calling me, she murmured, her eyes wide, as the swirling colors swallowed her own reflection. Don't you see? Dad is in there. No! Rick pulled her back, his grip firm. Your dad is gone. We can't give in to this. But what if he's not? What if he's trapped? Clara's voice trembled, desperation creeping in. They're all trapped. The shadows want you to stay. We can't let it take you. With a forceful tug, Rick managed to drag Clara away from the mirror. She stumbled, her heart racing. Clara glanced back, and for a moment she thought she saw her father's face, fading in and out of the mist. Did you see that? She gasped. Focus! Rick shouted. We have to find a way out, Clara. They pivoted, scanning the featureless room, shadows flickering and bending against the walls. What if that woman comes back? Clara whispered, her voice small. We fight. We keep moving. Rick's voice was steady despite the fear etched across his face. Suddenly, a shudder ran through the room. The laughter grew louder, swirling around them like a storm. Clara, hold on to me! Rick yelled as the floor beneath them creaked and groaned. The mirrors began to ripple, reflections of them shifting into nightmarish shapes. Clara's heart raced. Rick, we can't get trapped again! They took a few steps back, maintaining their formation. Just as Clara turned to look behind, a shadow darted across the corner of her vision. Did you see that? She gasped again. I did, Rick said, eyes narrowing. What was it? Before she could respond, the mirror exploded with light, illuminating the room in blinding rays. The shadows shrieked, twisting and retreating back. Clara shielded her eyes. "Now, let's move!" Rick shouted. They bolted, adrenaline fueling their escape. But as they neared the other end of the room, something shifted in the air. It felt thick and electric, pulsing with energy. "Where are we going?" Clara asked, heart pounding. "There has to be a way out," Rick barked. "We just need to find it." The laughter faded, replaced by a low, haunting hum. Clara felt it resonate inside her, tugging at something deep. "Rick, wait," she said. But he was already at the far wall, examining something hidden behind a cracked mirror. "What is it?" she asked, rushing toward him. "This," he pointed, revealing an ornate keyhole set into the wall. "Oh, what's that for?" Clara asked, tracing her finger along the cold metal. "I don't know, but it feels like it could unlock something." A flash of hope ignited in Clara's chest. "Do you think it will lead us out?" "It might," Rick replied, "but we need a key." Suddenly, a shape flickered in one of the mirrors. Clara turned, eyes widening. "It's her!" she breathed. The shadowy figure of the woman loomed closer in the reflection, a grin stretching across her face. "You've come back," she said, her voice dripping with malice. "How delightful!" "Stay back!" Rick shouted, stepping in front of Clara. "No need for that, dear," the woman said with a laugh that chilled them to the bone. "I've been waiting for you both." "Why?" Clara's voice quaked. "What do you want?" "To complete the cycle," she replied, moving closer as the shadows thickened around her. "To finish what was started." "What does that mean?" Rick challenged, not backing down. The woman turned her gaze on him, a glimmer in her eye. "This is your bloodline's legacy." "What?" Clara felt a pit form in her stomach. "What do you mean?" "The mirror holds the truth, and it's hungry," she said, fingers twisting in the air. "It longs for you, Clara." "Why me?" "Because you're the last of the Winslows," the woman declared, voice rising in intensity, "and the only one who can unleash its power." "No," Rick said, stepping forward, anger flaring. "We won't let you." The woman's laughter echoed, a sound filled with darkness. "So naive. You think you can fight what has already been decided?" Clara felt the shadows pulling at her, whispering promises of power, of knowledge. "I don't want power. I just want my father back. There's a cost." The woman's voice dropped to a lethal whisper. "A terrible price must be paid." "Stop it!" Clara shouted, clenching her fists. "You're lying." "I speak only the truth," she replied. "Your father made a choice, but you—" Suddenly, a loud crash cut through the tension, shaking the room. A heavy object fell from one of the mirrors, revealing an ancient tome. "What's that?" Clara asked, fear creeping back in. "Open it!" the woman hissed, shadows swirling menacingly around her. "I'm not listening to you," Rick said boldly. "Clara, we can't trust her." "She holds the key," the woman cajoled. "Only she can unlock the truth." "A key? We need a key." Clara felt urgency rising. "No!" Rick shouted. "Clara, don't!" But instinct drove her. She rushed forward, snatching the tome and flipping it open. The pages were filled with intricate symbols and illustrations, each one darker than the last. "What is this?" she whispered, heart racing. "It's a lineage," the woman said, her voice weaving through the chaos. "A history of your family and their connection to the mirror." As Clara skimmed the pages, she felt a sickening sensation knotting in her stomach. "This," her voice faltered, "it talks about sacrifices. Sacrifices to keep the darkness at bay," the woman whispered seductively. "It requires blood, Clara, blood to bind you to it." "No!" Rick shouted, grabbing her arm. "Close it!" But Clara's eyes locked onto a passage, her breath coming in short gasps. "It says, someone from the family has to die to break the curse." The room fell silent. "Clara." Rick's voice trembled as dread filled his eyes. "I can't believe this," she whispered. "It can't be true." "Oh, but it is," the woman crooned, a wicked smile spreading. "Who?" Rick pressed. "Who has to die?" The mirror behind the woman rippled again, and in the flickering images, Clara saw faces. Faces she recognized. "No!" she gasped, stepping back. "Choose wisely," the woman warned, "or lose them all." Clara clutched the tome tightly. "I won't do this. I can't." The laughter echoed again, a chorus of shadows, and Clara felt the weight of her choices suffocating her. "Clara, we can fight this," Rick urged, desperation creeping in. Fight what? She asked, panic rising. What if it's me? Clara, no! Rick shouted. We will find another way! But as the shadows shifted closer, Clara realized the truth, a bone-deep realization. Rick, I think I'm the key, she whispered, a mix of horror and acceptance churning in her gut. Don't say that, he pleaded, but it was too late. Clara, the woman's voice was like poison. Embrace your fate. And as the darkness closed in, Clara faced her own reflection in the swirling mirror. Choose. The voice danced around her, sweet and sinister. In that moment, Clara understood the cost, and all she could do was stare at her own haunted eyes, waiting for the final decision to unfold. Clara stared at the swirling mirror, her heart racing. The woman was right. The eerie atmosphere of the chamber pressed against her like a weight. She could feel the shadows crawling closer, the laughter echoing through her mind. Clara, don't think about it, Rick said, panic rising in his voice. We need to focus. We can get out of here. No, Rick, Clara cried, shaking her head. You don't understand. They want me to choose. Choose what? He asked, frustrated. What are you talking about? She opened the book wider, her eyes scanning the words. It's about sacrifices. It says, I have to decide who lives and who dies. Rick stepped back. No, we could fight. We could find another way. No, Clara shouted. This isn't just about us. It's bigger than that. The woman moved closer, her form flickering in and out of the shadows. Choose, Clara. Save the one you love, or let them fall. What do you want from us? Clara demanded, her voice trembling. Just tell me. I want nothing more than to see you embrace your destiny, the woman said. You have the power, Clara, the power to change this. Rick clenched his fists. We'll never let you have her, you hear me? Will you, Rick? The woman asked, her gaze icy. Your time is running out. Clara felt the heat of panic rising. Shadows crept closer, whispering unheard words. She shook her head, trying to clear the fog. What if I don't choose? What happens? Then the curse will claim everyone you hold dear, the woman said, her smile cruel. Your father's fate will be sealed, just like the others. No, Clara shouted, feeling tears prick at her eyes. Not again! Suddenly a loud bang echoed through the chamber, followed by a bright flash of light. The ground shook beneath them. What's happening? Rick yelled, his voice barely making it through the chaos. Get back! Clara shouted, throwing her arms around Rick as the chamber began to collapse. The walls cracked, shadows darting away from the light. The mirrors shattered, shards falling like rain. Clara, look out! Rick shouted, pulling her away as a piece of glass fell inches from her foot. Run! Clara screamed. They bolted toward the only exit, dodging falling debris. As they reached the doorway, the darkness erupted, swallowing everything behind them. They stumbled into a dimly lit hallway. Clara gasped for air, heart pounding. It's not over, Rick said, scanning the darkness. We need to find a way out, and fast. Clara glanced back. What about the woman? I don't know. Just keep moving. They hurried down the hallway, the air feeling thick and heavy. Shadows shifted behind them, whispering their names. What was that? Rick whispered, glancing over his shoulder. They're coming for us. We can't stop, Clara said, adrenaline pumping through her veins. Suddenly they heard footsteps, heavy and deliberate. Clara froze. Who's there? She called out, voice shaking. Clara! It was her father's voice, echoing through the hallway. Dad? Clara stepped forward. Where are you? Clara, this way. His voice was urgent, but Rick pulled her back. It's a trap. No, it can't be, Clara protested. He's in trouble. We can't trust it, Rick insisted, eyes wide with fear. We have to stay together. Clara? Her father's voice echoed again, filled with desperation. You need to come to me, now! She's trying to trick you, Rick shouted. Don't listen, Clara. Torn between the sound of her father's voice and Rick's warnings, Clara felt a surge of anger. I have to know what's going on. Clara, please, Rick pleaded. If you go to him, you could be trapped forever. But she couldn't shake the feeling that he was in danger. I can't leave him behind. Without thinking, she took off down the hallway, following the sound of his voice. Clara, Rick shouted, running after her. "Wait!" As they approached a heavy wooden door, it creaked open slowly. Clara stepped inside, heart racing. "Dad, are you here?" she called. Silence answered, just darkness. "Clara, this is a bad idea," Rick said, breathing heavily behind her. "Dad!" she yelled, a sense of dread filling her chest. And then she saw him. He stood at the edge of the room, silhouetted in the shadows. "Clara, you found me!" "Dad!" Clara rushed forward, her heart lifting, but as she neared, something in his posture changed. A smirk crept onto his face. "No!" Clara's stomach dropped. "Dad! Did you think I was waiting for you?" he said, voice dripping with malice. "Did you think I'd protect you?" "What are you talking about?" Clara backed up, panic rising. Rick moved to stand beside her, fists clenched. "What's wrong with you?" Her father laughed, a sound that echoed through the room. "It's too late, Clara. The mirror has chosen." "No!" Clara shouted. "This can't be happening." With a wave of his hand, the walls of the room began to shake. The shadows poured in, swirling around him. "What are you doing?" Rick shouted, trying to pull Clara back. "Let them face the truth," her father said, his eyes gleaming with darkness. "Let them succumb to their fate." The shadows closed in, their whispers growing louder. "Clara, we have to go!" Rick yelled, grabbing her arm, but she couldn't move. The realization hit her hard. "Dad, please don't!" Suddenly the shadows surged, enveloping her father. He laughed, a full chilling sound as they consumed him. "Dad!" Clara screamed, but it was too late. With her last glimpse of him, the shadows swallowed him whole. The room shook and she felt the ground beneath her tremble. "Clara!" Rick pulled her back. "We have to get out now." "What just happened?" Clara stammered, tears rolling down her cheeks. "There's no time!" Rick yelled. "Now!" They darted back into the hallway, running blindly. The walls creaked, and shadows raced after them. "Where do we go?" Clara shouted, breathless. "Any exit!" Rick yelled, eyes darting around. They skidded around a corner and the walls closed in on them. Shadows pressed against their backs, blocking their escape. "Clara, think!" Rick urged. "There has to be a way." "I don't know!" she yelled. And then the shadows surged forward, a wave of darkness. It slammed into them, knocking them to the ground. "Rick!" Clara screamed, struggling to push herself up. But he was pinned beneath the weight of the shadows. "Clara, run!" "No, I won't leave you!" The shadows roared, filling the air with their chilling laughter. Clara felt the darkness grip her tightly, pulling her down. "Clara!" Rick's voice strained against the weight. "Don't give up!" Then Clara felt a warmth growing inside her. The book. She still had it. "Get off him!" she shouted, holding it up as the shadows pressed in. Light exploded from the pages, blinding them both. The shadows hissed and recoiled, releasing their grip. "Now!" Rick shouted, scrambling to his feet. "Let's go!" In the chaos, Clara dashed back towards the hallway, the light from the book illuminating the path ahead. They raced forward, but the shadows were not far behind. "Keep going!" Rick shouted, pushing Clara ahead. "Where?" she gasped. "Anywhere but here!" he yelled. Suddenly, ahead of them, the wall opened up, revealing another chamber filled with mirrors, more than they had seen before. Each one glinted with darkness. "Keep moving!" Rick urged, his voice a lifeline, but Clara stopped, her breath catching in her throat. "Wait! What? Look!" She pointed at one of the mirrors. The reflection was different. An image of her father appeared, but his face twisted in agony. "Clara, help me," he mouthed, fingers reaching out toward her. "No!" Rick shouted, pulling her away. "Don't! I can't leave him!" Clara called out, stepping closer. "Clara, don't!" Rick cried. But as she took another step, the mirror cracked and her father's face twisted into a furious snarl. "Clara!" he roared. "You belong to me!" The ground shuddered again, shadows erupting from the cracks. "Run!" Rick yelled, grabbing her hand. They stumbled back, the chamber collapsing around them. The echoes of her father's furious laughter rumbled through the walls. And as Clara turned to flee, she saw a flame igniting other mirrors, each one filled with screaming faces, shadows reaching toward her. "We have to escape!" Rick shouted. "Let's go!" Clara called, pulling him toward the opening. But as they reached the doors, they slammed shut before them. "No!" Clara shouted, pounding against the wood. "Open!" "The shadows have us!" Rick yelled, heart racing. The laughter grew louder. Clara felt the room closing in, shadows swallowing them whole. "Clara, we're trapped!" Rick yelled. "Not yet!" she screamed, desperation pushing her forward. But the walls tightened. The laughter spilled into her ears, swirling around them. Then, out of the chaos, the woman appeared again, eyes glinting with dark delight. "Your choice, Clara. It's all on you now." Clara gasped. "What choice? I'm done choosing." "There are no more choices," the woman said softly. "Only consequences." With a deafening crash, the chamber trembled, shifting before their eyes. Clara felt the ground beneath her shake. "Rick!" she cried, the walls closing around them like a noose. "Hold on!" he shouted, pulling her close. And with that, everything erupted into darkness. Clara and Rick stood frozen in the dark chamber, shadows swirling like storm clouds. The laughter echoed, a bitter reminder of what they were facing. "Clara, fight it!" Rick shouted, his voice strained. "We have to get out!" Clara's heart pounded. "I can't! Don't let them consume you!" He pulled her closer, his grip tight. "You're stronger than this!" "What do we do?" she gasped, panic creeping up her spine. "There has to be another way out." Rick scanned the chamber as the shadows continued to twist and writhe around them. "Where? This place is collapsing!" Clara shouted, despair thickening the air. "Look over there!" Rick pointed to a narrow passage that seemed to open up beside one of the flickering mirrors. "Can we make it?" Clara asked, her eyes wide with uncertainty. "Isn't that our only option?" Clara inhaled sharply. "Okay, let's go!" They sprinted toward the passage, but the shadows flared, closing in like a living wall. Clara stumbled, nearly falling as the air turned thick and cold. "Clara!" Rick shouted, pulling her back upright. "Don't stop!" They rushed into the narrow opening, squeezing through as the darkness clawed at their backs. Howls of rage echoed, drowning out their breaths. The passage twisted, leading them into a tunnel that felt endless. "Keep going!" Rick yelled. "We can't stop." "What if we're trapped?" Clara shouted back, fear crawling into her throat. "Not if we keep moving," he insisted. As they ran, the light dimmed behind them. Shadows writhed, yet they could still hear whispers. "Clara! Shut up!" she screamed at the whispers. "You're not real!" The tunnel finally opened to a large cavern, dimly lit by an eerie glow from the walls. "What is this place?" Clara whispered, relief washing over her. "I don't know," Rick said, scanning the area. "But it's quiet. Too quiet," Clara added, her guard still up. As they stepped deeper into the cavern, something flickered at the edge of their vision. Clara squinted. "Did you see that?" she asked. "See what?" Rick replied, tensing up. "Over there!" Clara pointed. A shadow flitted past, almost human-like. "Let's stick together," Rick said, glancing warily around. Just then, a loud crash echoed through the cavern. "Get down!" Rick shouted, yanking Clara to the ground. Stone fell from the ceiling around them. Clara covered her head. "Is it falling apart?" she yelled, panicking. "No, it's—" Before Rick could finish, a figure emerged from the darkness. A tall woman stepped forward, the shadows swirling around her like a cloak. "Welcome back," she said, her voice smooth and cold. "Who are you?" Rick demanded, rising protectively in front of Clara. "Shush, boy," the woman laughed. "You didn't really think you could escape, did you?" Clara's heart raced. "What do you want?" "To watch." The woman smiled, her eyes scanning them. "To see how you make your choice." "What choice?" Rick shouted, his fists clenched. "The one you fought against," the woman said, her grin widening. "Who lives and who dies?" Clara felt a knot tighten in her stomach. "We won't play your games." "Oh, but you already are." The woman stepped closer, her voice lowering. "You see, I need a vessel, and Clara—" She leaned in, eyes glinting. "You look perfect for the job." "No, I won't let you!" Rick shouted, moving to protect Clara. But something shifted behind the woman. The shadows pulsed and figures began to emerge, faces that twisted in pain. "Clara!" one of them cried, reaching out. "Help me!" "Dad!" Clara gasped, recognizing the face. "No!" Rick yelled, stepping in front of her again. "Let him go!" Clara screamed. The woman laughed. "You want to save him. You want to save them all." She waved her hand and more shadows spilled forth, revealing more faces. "Who are they?" Rick hissed, pulling Clara back. "Your family," the woman said gloatingly, "all trapped by the mirror's curse. And you, Clara, must choose." "No!" Clara shouted, backing away. "Choose or lose them forever," the woman said, voice dripping with delight. "Clara!" Her father's voice echoed again, filled with torment. "Help me! Don't listen!" Rick shouted fiercely. "We can find another way!" But Clara was already stepping forward, drawn helplessly to the tortured expressions in the darkness. "Clara, come back!" Rick shouted, but she couldn't tear her eyes away. "Please!" her father cried. "Don't leave me here! Clara, don't you dare!" Rick yelled, desperation evident in his tone, but Clara stepped closer, heart pounding. "I can't leave him, Rick," the woman smirked. "Isn't it beautiful? The choice is yours." "No!" Clara screamed, feeling torn apart inside. Suddenly the ground shook violently. The cavern started to collapse as shadows clawed at the walls and the air became suffocating. "Run!" Rick shouted, grabbing Clara. But just then the shadows surged forward and Clara felt something sharp stab into her. She screamed, collapsing to the ground. "Clara!" Rick yelled, panicking. He knelt beside her, trying to check her injuries. "What happened?" "I don't know," Clara gasped, watching the shadows pulse closer. "It hurt." "No!" Rick yelled, glaring at the shadows. "Get back! Stay away from her!" The shadows drew closer, but Clara suddenly felt warmth spread from the spot where she'd been stabbed. "Rick," she murmured, confused. Her breath quickened as the warmth transformed into a blinding light, radiating from within her. "No way," Rick said, eyes wide. "Clara, what's happening?" "Something's happening to me," she breathed, looking down. The light began to pulse, drawing the shadows away. "Get back!" Rick shouted at the woman, who stumbled back in shock. The light surged. Clara felt powerful, alive. "I can make this stop! Clara, don't lose control!" Rick shouted, grabbing her hand tightly. The woman screamed, recoiling from the light. "No, you're not supposed to have that power." "Get away from me!" Clara shouted, the light growing stronger. But then Clara's heart dropped. In the chaos, the shadows surged forward again. The faces of her family twisted in agony. "Clara!" her father screamed, his voice merging with the terrible cacophony. "No!" Clara yelled, feeling the pull of the darkness. The shadows were reaching for her, wanting to drag her back. "Rick, I can't hold it," she gasped. "Stay with me! Fight it, Clara!" he shouted, gripping her hand hard. But the shadows were relentless. They enveloped Rick too, pulling him away. "Rick!" Clara screamed, watching him struggle against the darkness. "Fight, Clara! You can do this!" With a final push, the light erupted from her, pushing the shadows away. Rick was thrown against the wall, struggling to rise. Clara reached for him. "Rick, get up! We have to go!" But the cavern was collapsing around them. The woman stepped back, her laughter mingling with the screams of shadows. "You're making a mistake, Clara. You'll be trapped." "No, you're the one who is trapped!" Clara shouted, taking a step forward. But the shadows were closing in again. "Choose!" the woman howled, the darkness flowing around her. "I'll never choose you!" Clara screamed. And in that moment the shadows surged, and Clara felt herself teetering on the edge of oblivion. "Rick!" she called, feeling the light flicker. "Clara!" he shouted back, fear flashing in his eyes, and just like that the floor above them shattered, and darkness consumed them once more. "Hold on!" Clara yelled, and then they were gone, merging into the void where light could not enter. Clara and Rick floated in the darkness, unsure of where they were or what had just happened. The shadows had swallowed them, and for a moment, silence surrounded them like a thick veil. Clara reached for Rick, her heart racing. "Rick!" she called out, her voice trembling. "Are you okay?" A faint light began to appear in front of them. It pulsed like a heartbeat, guiding them through the blackness. Clara took a deep breath, feeling a surge of hope. "I'm here, Clara." Rick's voice came from nearby. "Just stay close." They moved toward the light, hand in hand, pulling each other through the oppressive darkness. With every step, the light grew brighter until it broke through the shadow like dawn breaking the night. They tumbled into a new space, the air fresh and almost electric. Clara blinked, adjusting to the brightness. They found themselves in a wide, open room filled with mist that danced around their ankles. The walls were made of translucent glass, reflecting bits of their images and the light cascading around them. "What is this place?" Clara whispered, scanning the ethereal landscape. "I don't know," Rick replied, looking around with wonder. "But it feels safe." Suddenly, a voice echoed through the room. "Welcome back to the light." Clara turned sharply. In front of them stood a figure, shimmering with the same glow as the room. It was a version of her father, but different, whole and unbroken. "Dad!" Clara exclaimed, tears brimming in her eyes. "Clara," he said gently, "you did it. You found your way back." "How?" Clara's voice struggled past the lump in her throat. Are you real?" "More real than before," her father smiled. "You broke the cycle." Rick stepped forward, looking between Clara and her father. "But what about the curse, the woman, the shadows?" "Those are part of the past," her father explained, the glow around him pulsing softly. "You faced them and chose the light, Clara, not just for yourself, but for those trapped before you." The mention of the trapped faces sent a shiver through Clara. "What happened to them?" "They are free now," he said, a warmth radiating from his presence. "Choosing the light means letting go of the shadows. They've all moved on." Clara felt like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. Hope surged in her chest. "So they're okay? They're safe?" "Yes. And now you have a choice," he said, glancing at Rick. "You and Rick can return or stay here in the light." Clara looked at Rick, whose expression was a mix of awe and confusion. "What do you think?" she asked quietly. Rick shrugged, glancing back at her father. "What happens if we stay?" "Here, you can find peace and protect others," her father said, a gentle smile touching his lips. "But if we leave, what will happen to us?" Clara asked, fear creeping in. "Will it all come back?" Her father shook his head, the light around him shimmering. "The shadows are gone for good. You've broken the cycle and freed the spirits of the past. You must continue, but you're stronger than before. Trust that." Clara felt the weight of the moment. She had fought through darkness, faced her family's past, and now stood on the brink of something new. "I don't know if I can do this," she confessed, biting her lip. "Together," Rick said immediately, gripping her hand tighter. "We're stronger as a team, and besides, you've done all the hard work. This is your moment." In that instant, Clara felt a rush of clarity. She looked at her father, heart pounding with emotion. "Dad, I want to help others. I want to keep protecting those who can't protect themselves." "You've already done that, Clara," her father said, pride shining in his eyes. "Choose what you believe is right." Clara glanced at Rick, who nodded with determination. "I'm with you, Clara, always." Feeling a swell of courage, Clara turned back to her father. "We choose to go back. We'll help others. Be the light in their shadows." Her father beamed, and a brilliant light erupted from him, swirling around Clara and Rick. It enveloped them in warmth and love, and she could almost hear her father's voice echoing in her mind. "Always remember you are stronger than you know." The light pulled them. Clara squeezed Rick's hand as the world around them faded, and in a flash they found themselves back outside the Winslow estate, night slowly turning to dawn. The air was cool and crisp. Clara looked around, feeling the familiar comfort of the ground beneath her. The house stood behind them, silent and still. Did we really do it?" Clara whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "Yeah," Rick replied, looking back at the estate, a blend of relief and contemplation on his face. "We did." As they took a step away from the house, Clara felt lighter, as if a long-standing burden had been lifted. But deep within her, the echoes of the past reminded her that there would always be shadows to confront and truths to uncover. "We should tell someone," Clara suggested, looking at Rick, "about what happened. About the truth of this place." "Absolutely," Rick agreed, determination brewing in his eyes. "We can't let what happened here fade away." They turned to walk toward the open road ahead, hand in hand. But as they moved away from the house, Clara felt a familiar chill and pause. "What is it?" Rick asked, glancing back. I feel like this isn't truly over," she said, her heart racing. "Like something else is waiting for us." Suddenly the wind kicked up, swirling leaves around them, whispering thoughts that danced on the edge of her mind. Clara's thoughts turned back to the mirror and the woman with the shadows. "What if she came back?" Clara said, a chill running down her spine. Rick frowned. "Then we'll fight, just like we did before." Clara nodded, feeling both fear and excitement rush through her. The adventure was far from over, and the choices ahead lay open like a new chapter in her life. "You ready?" Rick asked, squeezing her hand tighter. "Ready," Clara breathed, taking a step forward, and with that they began to walk, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. Now this is the moment to really show your support. You need to subscribe to the channel immediately so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Press that like button now to feed the algorithm. We want to hear from you. Comment with your reactions and theories about this ending. And for the love of all things spooky, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to know this story. Don't wait another second to share. Only true fans understand how much this means.